Before building or designing a pond, having a good idea where the pump or pumps are going to be is prudent. For the most part, where we position a pump in a pond will be determined by the size of the pond and its use. In this video, I want to explore some of the different options that are available so that you can make an informed decision before building your pond. G'day, my name is Kev. The aim of my channel is to help people build and maintain ponds without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, feel free to subscribe and check out my website, Ozponds.com. So I'm a big believer that most ponds should incorporate some kind of skimming action. This can be done in the form of a traditional skimmer that is positioned on the edge of the pond, although some of the smaller models are positioned inside the pond. It could be an intake bay which is created within the pond itself, or it could be the use of a negative edge, which is created by having a storage reservoir outside the pond. Having the water's surface skimmed of debris helps reduce maintenance by removing materials which would otherwise sink and break down inside the pond. To create the skimming action, you need to have the water being pulled into these areas, and therefore these are the areas where you would position your pump or pumps. Before we take a more in-depth look at the configuration of each setup, I just want to say that if the pond is small and it's really easy to net out any debris that sinks inside the pond, you don't really need to create a skimmer or similar. In that situation, it's okay to position the pump inside the pond. I still think it's a good idea to keep the pump higher than the deepest part of the pond. That will help prevent it getting clogged regularly. I also think it's a good idea to place it near an edge that's easily accessible for maintenance. And it's a good idea to position it so that it's on the opposite end of where the water enters the pond. This will help ensure good circulation throughout the filtration system. When I place pumps inside a small pond, I like to place them inside a plant pot and cover the top and the drainage holes with a filter sponge. This increases the surface area around the pump so that it's harder for it to become clogged, which reduces maintenance, but it also stops any baby fish being sucked up by the pump. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's take a look at a regular skimmer. These are good for medium-sized garden ponds. I think the best type of skimmer that you can buy is the type that's positioned on the edge of the pond. This makes the pump very easy to access as it sits inside the box. The box will have a small opening with a flap-like door. This is called a weir. The water being pulled into the box over the weir creates surface tension and pulls the debris floating on the pond surface into the skimmer box. There will be a net of some description to capture the debris. You can buy these skimmer boxes online or at pond retailers. They're easy to install and come in quite a few different sizes, so make sure you get the size appropriate for your pond. They'll also be rated for different amounts of flow, so it's important to size the pump in accordance with what the skimmer box recommends. If you were to oversize the pump, the skimmer box would run dry, and so would your pump. And if you undersize the pump, you won't create enough surface tension and the debris might sink before it reaches the skimmer. You can also create your own skimmer, like this one I made with a common bucket, a small offcut of pond liner, a few rocks and some sponges. I won't go into the details of that here, but I'll link a video in the description to how that works if you want to try and make one yourself. Another popular type of skimmer is these sit in the pond types. I'm not really a fan as the pump is inside the pond, so it's harder to access compared with the box type skimmer, and they don't blend in as easily. The box type skimmers and the DIY skimmer can easily blend in with the landscape. Then we have an intake bay, and this is really just a supersized skimmer. These are great for larger ponds with multiple pumps, people that want even less maintenance, ponds that get a lot of leaf material dumped in them, or ponds where people are worried about fish being sucked into the skimmer. These are built inside the pond itself, I don't want to get bogged down in construction tips in this video, but you want to create easy access to the pumps that are powering the intake bay. The professionals will use specially designed pump vaults, snorkels, or heavy-duty pipe. I'm a tight ass, so I used olive barrels on one and a wheelie bin on another. I'll link those videos so that you can see the actual construction. But in terms of pump positioning, you want these access ports near the edge of the pond so that you can easily access the pumps year-round without getting wet. In a well-constructed intake bay, you'll very rarely need access to the pumps, but if ever you do need access, it will be in winter when you don't want to be getting into the water. So trust me, keep the access points near the pond's edge. The other design is a negative edge, which uses a reservoir to draw water from. In this situation, the pond level remains constant, and that's why it's called a negative edge. The water just disappears over the edge into the reservoir. These are great for even less maintenance, and they're really handy for ponds that have large streams or waterfalls as part of the design. Because large streams or waterfalls have lots of water in motion, the reservoir allows the pond level to remain constant. If you try and move lots of water directly from your pond, the water level will drop significantly. You can of course then top it up, and this seems fine while all the pumps are running. But if they turn off for any reason, like a power failure, all that water in motion will overflow the pond. In these systems, the pumps are housed inside the reservoir, and just like the intake bay design, you'll add an access port so that you can easily maintain them. The position of the access portal and pumps within the reservoir doesn't matter so much here, as the majority of the rock covering the reservoir will remain dry. Although on larger systems, it looks nice if you create a bit of a pooling/stream area to make it look more natural. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is just position the pumps in an area of the reservoir that will remain dry. Now, for people that are looking to swim in their ponds and want the pumps positioned out of the water, there are two easy options. One is using a submersible pump that sits outside the pond but below the water level. You'll need to create a hole in the liner that will accept the pipework. A bulkhead fitting can be used to create the watertight hole. This allows the water to flow and fill the pump as if it was sitting inside the pond. Because you need to remove the cage that protects the pump impeller when plumbing this way, you need to create your own manifold to stop the pump sucking in large solid materials that could damage the pump. This is easier to create on a pond with a skimmer or intake bay than a pond with a negative edge. That's because the water inside the reservoir will be less constant than the water level of the pond. Therefore, the pump would need to be positioned at the lowest level of the reservoir. That might be easy on sites with a lot of slope, but it will also increase head pressure on the pump. The other option is buying a dedicated external pump, like a pool pump. The majority of these need to have water poured into the pipe that connects the pump to the pond. This primes the pump and allows it to suck water up from the pond into the pump and then into the filters. Again, you want to create a manifold to prevent the pump from sucking up any materials that are too big for it to pass safely. This method can easily be used on a skimmer, intake bay, or a negative edge system. The only downside to these pumps is that they tend to be significantly more expensive, or the cheaper models consume a lot of energy compared to their submersible pump counterparts. So in summary, what is important when it comes to pond pump position is that you try and maximise circulation, i.e. move water from one side of the pond to the other. You incorporate a skimming function on any pond that's difficult to manually net, and you have easy access to the pump. I do hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. As always, thanks for watching. See ya.